Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. It's another day. Yep, it's a disastrous weekend, and the big question we've got going forward is now what? And I think that's what everybody wants to know. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about how this happened and where everything moves forward as far as where's Nico going to wind up. Also, what would Tennessee do, or what is Tennessee going to do as far as quarterback in that situation? And I think I got a pretty good understanding of that as well. What I'm not going to do is sit here and act like nothing's happened or everything's fine.
Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
No, I won't be doing that. This is a disaster for both sides. I really believe that. I think Nico's camp overplayed their hands in a major way. I don't think there's any question. They've been obviously trying to get a better deal out in the West Coast for weeks and weeks now, and that is the alleged thoughts that are out there, and we have reason to believe that. I'll also show you some somewhat compelling evidence that that's the case, that Dan Lanning's the one that kind of let Heupel know what's going on, or at least let Tennessee know what's going on as far as Iamaleava's camp. Also, I've been talking to you a lot, especially in the comment section. Good grief. Yesterday I did this video and you folks went bananas in the comment section. 1,550 comments, which is easily the most I've ever had on a video. And I spent 2 or 3 hours in there yesterday trying to respond to every comment I possibly could. And I got to most of them. I got to a bunch of them. And I didn't see anybody support Nico. Out of 1,500 plus comments, not one positive. I didn't see anything. There was 1 or 2 that might have said, well, you know, he's got a right to get his money, but I still don't agree with what he did. I mean, it was universal, and it was from tons of you that are Alabama fans, Georgia fans, even Florida fans, a bunch of Missouri fans. Everybody's like, yeah, finally, way to go, Tennessee, for sticking up. We're sick of this crap. And they didn't appreciate the way Nico treated Tennessee or Heupel, for that matter. And Heupel spoke to this. Nico wouldn't even speak with Heupel. The guy that brought him in, got him, what, $8 million basically, was paying him in high school, made him the starting quarterback, and he won't even pick up the freaking phone.
Josh, this might be getting in a little bit to the weeds of your policy and the university's policy, but when you can't get in touch with the player and you have to go to extra length and maybe their staff members can't get in touch with the player or something like that, is there something you guys do about that situation, or did you know Friday morning that when he didn't show up for practice, this was probably the reason why and why he's not answering the call?
It's probably a fair reason to expect that that's, you know, the symptom of it, right? At the end of the day, you know, just in leadership position, you have standards of who you got to be inside the building and outside of it. At the same time, like every individual is a little bit different. So in leadership, just have learned to try to keep a cool head and also understand the dynamics of all situations.
Yeah, obviously when he didn't show up Friday for the practice, and wouldn't even take a phone call, he pretty much knew it was over. I cannot begin to tell you how disappointed I am in Nico for not taking a phone call. At least manning up and saying, look, coach, this isn't going to work out. I'm going to go for more money, and I won't be back. At least do that, Nico. You owe Josh Heupel that, and you didn't give him any modicum of respect, so be it. And coaches notice that kind of crap. I'm going to show you this now. This is Mario Cristobal that had a comment about this very thing.
We're not going to do that at Miami, and I say that without any hesitation. You know, if anyone's thinking that, and they could be the best player in the world, if they want to play holdout, they might as well play get out. We don't want to do that. We don't want Miami to become that. Too many guys have sweated, bled, have laid it on the line on that field to ever become that kind of a program.
Yeah, so Mario Cristobal's not going to put up with that crap, saying, hey, you know, if you don't like it, right there's the door. You know, if you don't want to show up and play and we're paying you, So this is obviously affecting a lot of coaches and a lot of folks all over the country. Now, the big talk out there is that Dan Lanning's the one that let Tennessee know that Nico was being shopped all over the West Coast and that he had communicated with Tennessee in some way, shape, or form and let them know, hey, you know, you got a problem. And he was asked directly about this, and the answer that he gave probably speaks volumes.
Dan, it's been a pretty big story the last 48 hours in college football. Did you contact Josh Heupel or anyone at Tennessee or
I'm not getting anything else except let's talk about a scrimmage today. The Ducks worked really hard at a scrimmage today.
Yeah, I think that answers the question pretty clearly. He didn't want to talk about that at all. If he hadn't communicated anything, said, I don't know what you're talking about. I wouldn't have, no, I didn't do anything like that. So he didn't want to lie, which I respect that. You know, a non-answer, you didn't lie, you just didn't answer. So I think he didn't appreciate the way Nico was doing Tennessee, because he probably thought, you know, that's going to be me coming up pretty soon at some point, and there's no point in playing this game. And he's in a great position at Oregon. They got tons of money. They were number one most of the year last year. He's not in a position where he's worrying about his job. He's going to, you know, play by his own rules, which obviously he didn't appreciate Nico's people's behavior or his camp. Now, there are two things that everybody wants to know. Where is Nico going to wind up, and what's Tennessee going to do as far as at quarterback? Now, let's take a look at this transfer portal window. I had to refresh my memory on this thing. For football, the spring window is Wednesday, April 16th. So that's, middle of the week. And it only runs 10 days until April 25th. So we're going to know pretty soon as far as what's happening there. So this is not going to be some drawn-out thing forever. We're going to know pretty quickly, because if you're Nico, you need to get in there as quick as you can, at least get the playbook, because you're going to have to relearn an entire offense and a coaching system and all the language that goes with it. You know, you've put yourself behind a bit of an 8-ball, and that's just the choice you made over money. And you're probably not going to get any more money than you were getting in Tennessee, and you're in a tougher spot. But, you know, you overplayed your hand, or your people did.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
That's just my opinion. And here are some of the possible transfer destinations where he could wind up. The one most people are talking about is UCLA. This is a team that needs a quarterback, and they talked about the basketball team had just picked up Donovan Dent, who was the number one player in the transfer portal for basketball, so they're spending some money, and they're considered a front runner because they have a big-time need. They have a quarterback from Appalachia State they brought in, but, I mean, Nico would be a good splash for him, and he's from there. Now, realize if Nico signs there, to make the same amount of money he's making at Tennessee, he would need between $2.8 and $3 million as far as taxes are concerned, because he's going to have to give 14% of his money to California.
How about me, boss?
Oh, yeah, one for you.
And me, boss.
One for you.
And me, boss.
One for you.
And me, boss.
And one for you.
And then it costs about twice as much to live out there, and he's got to take care of his whole group. So it's going to be expensive. He's probably going to need $3.5 million just to make the same amount of money after taxes and after expenses to be in the same boat as he was at Tennessee. But maybe he'll like it out there better. The next place is also on the West Coast, and that's USC, Lincoln Riley. But he's got guys that, you know, he's thinking are going to start. So he's talking about just totally wrecking his quarterback room. So that's a possibility, but, you know, we'll see. They've got money out at USC, so he might be able to get that $3.5, $4 million that he wants to make up for what he's losing at Tennessee. Same situation tax-wise and all that. Notre Dame. Notre Dame does have a spot open because Riley Leonard went to the NFL. They've got 3 quality quarterbacks that they're fighting out for this spot, and they didn't get anybody in the fall portal. So talking about blowing up the quarterback room, this would totally do it. But Notre Dame does have the money, and they're coming off playing in the championship last year. So, I mean, they're in a good spot and could afford it. It's just, do you want to blow up your quarterback room and bring in a guy that's a total mercenary that only cares about money, or appears that way? Another spot, which this is the one that I just cannot imagine, is North Carolina. And the reason being, can you imagine Bill Belichick dealing with Nico's pop? You just, oh my gosh. Look, he wouldn't even pay the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL, who had won him half a dozen championships. You think he's going to pay this kid? I just don't see that happening at all. And then they've got Oregon listed here. I mean, Dan Lanning's already told the kid to kick rocks. So that's a non-starter there. So those are some of the places people are thinking about. I've heard Texas Tech. I've heard other spots. But UCLA seems to be the one everybody's talking about. Now let's talk about what Tennessee might do. Look, they don't need to tamper. Everybody's talking about tampering. The portal's going to be open here in a little bit. The word is out. The biggest story in the sports world right now when it comes to college football is Tennessee and Nico. It's everywhere. It's ESPN's #1 story. You're talking Pete Thamel, Chris Lowe, on down the list, Paul Feinbaum, everybody who's anybody in journalism or YouTube or any X, Everybody's talking about this. So there are dozens of quarterbacks at other teams outside the SEC that are sitting here going, let's see, the starting spot's pretty much open at Tennessee. They got at least a couple of $1 million sitting over there they could spend on a quarterback. I'm making 1.5 here or 1 million here. That'd be a heck of a spot to be in. And an offense that is very quarterback friendly. Remember Hendon Hooker? So I don't think they'll have any trouble bringing in a quarterback. Might be a 4th year or 5th year guy, which would be ideal. Get him some money, and you get to be probably the starter at Tennessee. You'll have to beat out a redshirt freshman and a freshman who are quality athletes, but they have no experience. And you might have 2 or 3 or 4 years experience under your belt. So believe me, there are dozens of quarterbacks and agents that are going, oh man, this could be the spot for you. So I don't think Tennessee is going to have any trouble getting a veteran quarterback who's ready to go, who has a ton of experience. I think that will be fairly easy. Now, again, it may have to come from a smaller school. It might even be a group of 5 guy, but it'll be somebody who can handle the bright lights and has proven so. So that's what's going on right now. Like I say, it's been pretty much a disaster this weekend. I have scoured the internet for all of these various stories to try to bring to you, and it's all anybody's talking about. And I don't think there's any question that Nico and his camp has overplayed their hands, and they've put themselves in a corner, and it's unfortunate. Didn't have to be that way. And Tennessee's got a problem too, but I think it'll all work out in the end. I don't think there was any way you could bring the kid back after this. I think the team would have just been like, so we get to act that way too? You've got to have some discipline. And not showing up to practice and not taking your head coach's phone call it's done. I mean, that's as done as it gets. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit this little button right there. It won't cost you a dime. Hit to get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.